Hi, this is Amy Magyar from FromWithin Coaching. I'm the owner and a coach, along with one of our favorite coaches, Coach Augusta Goodcrawl, who is a big fan of strengths, just like I am.
Absolutely.
Nice to have you today.
Super to be here with you, Amy. Thanks.
So we're not just going to talk about strengths in general. We're actually really getting down to brass tacks, and we are talking about Activator today. An activator is an interesting one because it's often the one that is, it's actually quite prevalent for a lot of people in terms of having it, but sometimes can be some confusion between something like activator and achiever, or activator and developer, or maximizer. We'll talk a little bit about that. But first things first, I just wanted to check in with you. You're good and you're well?
I am well, Amy. I am super excited to be here again and speaking about.
What is it about
Activators.
strengths for you, just out of curiosity, that you that really gets you excited?
What I really love about working with clients around their strengths and helping them to really become aware of and connect with them is that it really helps people develop self-awareness and really increase self-awareness and really find and connect to those natural talents, the inherent ways that they navigate through this world. That's kind of who I am as a coach. And so this tool of, helping people find their strengths is really something that I get very excited about.
I love it too, because it's your DNA. Like as somebody who has fought her own imposter syndrome and who works with coaches who have imposter syndrome, or really any human being that has it, is you can't fool the test, the assessment. And so often it's really actually hard for people to choose their own strengths because they don't realize how natural strengths come to them. They're more self-aware of the things that take up energy. So this is a chance for, what's interesting about, I think, about Activator is it is very much about energy. So I'll just jump in for a second here.
Yeah.
It's very much about energy. And yet when CliftonStrengths, when they look at where Activator sits, it actually sits in influencer and not execution. And I think that's one of the first things. So all right, I'm already jumping ahead, totally activating. Let me back up for a second. So just to share that it's sort of in the influencing theme. And influencing can also be, it's traditionally thought of for CliftonStrengths is helping make a difference, helping getting buy-in, helping creating results, right? Versus just doing. And yet Activator, if I had to define it in 3 words, not 2, 3 words, it would be ready, aim, fire.
Absolutely.
Like it's do it, right?
Yeah.
So why is that not executing? And we'll talk a little bit today about that, because it sure sounds like it's doing.
Yeah.
But it is really more helping people influence to you not only ready, set, go, but you get others, you inspire others to do it as well, because they see your movement. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Activators are definitely the people who take take ideas and get them into action.
Yeah.
And, as leaders, for you, a question would be, how do you see activators influencing as leaders?
Oh, good question. Let me back up for a second.
With that
Hold that thought. Go back to, I want to hear, I mean, I stole the 3 words. So I made it really easy for myself, going first and saying, I define it as ready, set, go, or ready, set, aim, or ready, aim, fire. For you, how would you define activators? Because I know you've had activators as clients.
Absolutely.
What would, in Augusta's language, what would you say an activator is?
I think my favorite word around activators is opportunist.
Oh,
because activators they have this commitment to get started. They're the ones that are, when you talked about that energy and I spoke about that action, they're the ones who are just committed to getting something started.
Yeah.
And they're also the ones that I see, really see opportunities and take action on them.
Right.
Whereas many of us, that's not our strength, is taking that action. They're the ones who are going to absolutely take action.
Yeah. And often, so to sort of answer that question about the leadership
Yeah.
is, what's interesting is that that's a good, it's a good quality of a leader and a bad quality of leader. So good quality of leader is they take action, because often what leaders need to do is help remove obstacles from people so that they can do the work, right? The leader's not supposed to do the work for the employee. It's about removing the obstacles that get in the way of the person doing the work. And so I think it's a really powerful strength of, how can I help move obstacles? I see an obstacle, I'm going to move it. Like they get fueled by the doing and by moving.
Absolutely.
Where they may get themselves in trouble if they're not aware is their job as a leader who's an activator is not to actually move the challenge away from move the challenge out of the employee's way to then do it for them.
Yes.
I don't know if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Their job's not to do it, move the obstacle for the employee, allow the employee to do it. Because in fact, by even moving the obstacle, you're inspiring that the person that works for you to be like, wow, you did that for me. And you almost seemingly weren't afraid to take action.
Right.
To allow me then to be successful. That's actually super inspiring.
Yeah, it is. And when you were speaking, earlier about him being, under the theme of influencer, that's where I really saw, leaders being able to help others see how they can remove obstacles to action. And there's that influencing.
It's like contagious, right?
It is. And it's also, again, speaking to the energy, I think of activators as almost catalysts, or, launchers.
Good word. Yes.
Because there seems to be, when they're just so eager to get into action or to help others, really see and remove the obstacles to action. I just see this influx of energy at the beginning.
Yeah.
At the start. And that's where they're most powerful.
I think what's interesting is that sometimes as leaders or as just a human being who has activator, because what we know is that your strengths don't just show up when you're at work, they show up at home too.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk a little bit about sort of personal activation. Got a couple of examples. But what's interesting is that because their fuel comes from taking action, that some may perceive them as taking action too quickly because they don't need a lot of context or input to CliftonStrengths that they have that are out there in the world. They don't need as much gathering. They may not like strategic, you can kind of see the patterns and know which way to go. With activators, they don't need to see the patterns. They just feel this movement to let's move forward and we'll learn as we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most activators are probably some of the best disruptors in the world. So I wouldn't be surprised if Steve Jobs had done CliftonStrengths if he wasn't as the head of Apple, if he wasn't didn't have activator, because
Absolutely.
he often was challenging his engineers to, let's just try it.
Well, that's it, and I think that a lot of, we talk about our strengths and we talk about how we can mature them or how we can really develop the skills around them. I think a lot of people can see activators as almost kind of reckless or impulsive. By taking that action, sometimes it's like if you're reading the directions to put something together, you might get to step 1 or step 2 and start taking action instead of, actually, finishing. And so yeah, that's what comes to my mind. But the beauty of that is, I think for these, the entrepreneurs, or we see a lot of people who aren't scared to take action on ideas. And, sometimes in these situations like that, the failure itself is the way to the success.
It's the lesson, right?
Yeah.
In there, and they're not afraid. And I think, as we look back on the world over the next, let's say 5 to 10 years after 2020, the people that were not afraid to take action in terms of pivoting are the people that will have figured out a way to survive a global pandemic economic crash.
Absolutely.
Now the
Yeah.
challenge is working or having an activator in your household. I'm going to pause from the work and go to activator in the household. Do you have any things you want to share with the listeners in terms of an example of an activator and a household, like what he or she might do for their family? Can you think of anything?
Family. Yeah, one of the ways that I know activators can sometimes come across in their personal life or even at work with any relationship is kind of pushy or a little bit, just come on, let's get going. And that can obviously be seen as a rub to a lot of people, especially someone who might not have a strength of activator in their constellation in their top 5.
That's a great
where they
point.
really need to, I'm just thinking of a parent-child relationship or even a spouse or 2 different children who really kind of need that time, need that input, need the time to really learn about something or do a lot of research. And then you've got an activator saying, come on, let's do it now. So
right, we'll figure it out, right? They sort of seem reckless, like
they learn by
figure
doing
it out.
Yeah. So that's where, I think you could see a lot of, differences as far as relationship.
For them, the fuel comes from the starting and the momentum.
Yeah.
One of the things I think, if you yourself are not an activator and you haven't had your team or the people around you do CliftonStrengths before, you have an activator in your mix when they sort of look like a caged animal. You guys are making plans.
Like that.
They're like
come on
back and forth, like let's just get started. Like there's a pretty good chance that person's an activator. That we'll figure it out. No, we don't need a hotel. We're just going to figure it out. And so for them, movement and at least starting that movement is key.
Yeah.
Now there is and we talked about it sort of in the beginning of, there's a strength that is called achiever.
Yep.
And it is defined as, how would you define achiever? I know we're going to be talking about activator, but I want to compare it to
yeah, absolutely, because I think these are 2 that can get confused sometimes.
Yeah.
And what's really, what's the real big difference here is when we talk about activator, we're talking about the one that's at the starting line, ready to go. They're off like a cannon. And when we talk about achiever, we're talking about someone who really is looking more towards the finish line and the importance of crossing that finish line. And so what a beautiful thing, I've never coached anyone who's had both in their top 5.
But if they do, they should be a business owner, right?
Yeah. I mean,
they start and end. Yeah.
They start and end. And so, so I think even though they can get confusing sometimes, or some people can confuse them, the real difference is where that energy is, where they get that satisfaction. Right. Achiever is finishing, crossing of something off a list, getting across the finish line. Activator is absolutely getting into motion.
You know that you have an activator in your household when they start a recipe and it has 25 ingredients and they mix the water and the salt and all of a sudden go, we don't have the other, whatever it was, 22 ingredients or, whatever it is. It's like sometimes it looks like they're not planning, but they just wanted to get started. And so that's an interesting, that's one way to sort of see it, is that they'll figure out the recipe as they go along of like, well, I don't have soy sauce. Let me try tahini, or let me try something else. And maybe it works itself out. However, because they get their juice from starting, they may not have as much of the excitement around finishing a project.
Yes.
And so that's a really great example of pairing an activator up with an achiever, someone that can start it and end it.
Right.
So activator starts it, the achiever ends it. And
right.
Sort of, that's a great, mix of, you don't have to have both, but if you have a team, don't give the person that has the activator, the starter, don't set them up as the project ender.
Yeah. The finisher,
right.
Yeah.
Have them be the one that gets going and gets excitement around it going.
Absolutely. That energy.
Yeah. Sort of so important to kind of look at that.
Yeah. And when we coach activators, you know, part of the skill development around our strengths is like obviously looking at how can we get into that more mature, developed level of our strengths, and is, you know, how do you stay focused um, on a project or a goal and use a little bit of skill to develop that finish, that push to the finish. If they're in a situation where they're not just starting, using their strengths as starters and letting another team member or the team take it from there.
Right, right. And so one of the things that can be, this is kind of fun to play with. Let's say you're a solo entrepreneur and you do not have anybody that can start and stop. You are the starter and the ender. And even though as an activator, it's really easy for you to start projects, right? It may be really hard for you to end them or complete them because that's not where your energy comes from. One of the things that you can do as an activator who enjoys the start is look at each day as a start. So play with the brain a little bit of, I get to start the project today, even though you're probably 3 months into it or whatever it is, or I get to start on this new aspect of this other thing. And so it's just the language that we give ourselves around where we are in a project.
Absolutely.
I mean, I always say either find yourself a partner that's an achiever or pay for an achiever to help you end it. But if you can't, one of the things you can do is just brain hack yourself so that, heck, I mean, I've done it even in the middle of the day where it's not, oh, tomorrow's when I'm going to start it again. It's right after lunch, I get to start again.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a
so
great
sort
mindset shift. Absolutely.
Remembering that you can have mini starts all the time, especially for me, a marathon project, the industry I was in, we would buy product for like 9 months out. And then that's when the product would hit the stores, and then it would take another 6 months to sell through. So I didn't know, you know, a year and a half early how it was going to go. And so that was really hard because I didn't have the end goal. I wasn't able to see ends a lot. And that was almost like sort of training for a marathon, right? I mean, that's a long, slow process.
Yes.
For an activator, a marathon could be really hard to train for.
Absolutely.
Because they're like, okay, let's get to the end here. Let's get the race over with, right? But what we know in theory is that real good marathon training, you're training for a long time. But every time you go out and say, I get to start a 10-mile run today, that could be what actually gets you up and out to do it.
Absolutely.
What else is coming up for you around Activator that I might be forgetting?
Oh, I don't know. I just absolutely, like I said, it's not one of my top 5. And so it's something I wish I'm strategy, learner, input. I'm all about the really working the material, really doing the research.
Yeah.
So Activator is something that it's always exciting for me to meet somebody and coach somebody with it, because I learn so much. And it's, I think it's an exciting strength. I think any kind of actionable strength like that is definitely powerful. Like you had mentioned, looking, 5 years from now, there are going to be a lot of start and stops. And so somebody who's able to really get their energy from trying new things, from jumping off a cliff and saying, let's do this, I think is definitely an exciting thing to talk about.
Yeah. If you have an activator in your life, right, be aware that their juice comes from the start, and they're not being irresponsible. They just don't need a whole lot of context or input to start going, because they learn as they go along. So let's be patient with our activators if we're not. The other thing that just a little career advice, if you know that you're an activator, government work, bureaucracy, higher education, things that move really slowly.
Nightmare situation.
Probably not ideal. Not impossible, but just probably going to challenge you more than it's going to fuel you. And then realizing that if you have somebody that's an activator on your team, allow them to make decisions, because that allows them to get moving, and that fuels them. And sort of, again, know that they're still thinking things through. They just don't need as much to get started. So it may look like they're starting a project with not all the information, but they're not scared of not having all the information. And it's okay, because they're going to actually be pretty curious because they are learning as they go along.
Yeah.
Makes
Absolutely.
sense?
Absolutely.
We've got 2 minutes left. Let's see, anything else about Activator that we think is important?
I, again, will go back to the opportunity and being able to really be the person who sees the crack in the door and can go through it. And so, yeah, for me, that is really huge right now, in this COVID time and what we're, looking forward to. So I just really find a lot of excitement, talking to activators and helping them get into action around ideas, opportunities, and, with others, helping others do the same.
Because if we can get them into action, there's a beauty, sort of a precedent that is set when we see others taking action, mirror neurons, and we can get really scientific about all this. We tend to, we see another human being take action at a time where maybe it'd be really hard to take action. We are more apt to take action when we see others taking action.
Absolutely.
What is that statement? Sort of the first step is the hardest. I debate that sometimes. Sometimes it's, for activators, the first step is not the hardest. It's the second step, right?
Yeah, they're leapers.
Right.
They leap over the cliff.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty. And these are the people that will definitely step into that a lot quicker than others. So it's
and
great to have them
incite
around.
and inspire to get everybody to come along. So
influencer. They're
that's
influencing.
it.
Yeah.
There it is. Well,
There
I think we did it. Drop the mic on that one, influencer. Augusta, I'm so grateful to do this today with you, especially sort of as we're looking at helping people understand what Activator is, but also understanding the gem of it, that it's not actually, the power's not in the doing, although an activator is an amazing person to have on staff. The beauty is in the ripple effect that they have on the rest of the organization. So
I agree.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, our time is up.
All right, Amy, thank you so much. I look forward to our next Strengths Talk.
I love it. We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Bye.